everyone.
Sorry to talk
Thanks for coming today to hear Caroline Furr and Linda Brenner speak about their work in this show. Both artists are really shy, so I'm going to have to draw them out to speak. And so they'll each, give a bit about themselves, the work, and then field your questions. So let's give a warm welcome to Caroline.
And to the Ceruleans too, who magically pair people together and then throw it up and it looks fabulous. Thank you. Really. Well, I'm the one that's on the walls, kind of. And I was just looking at our work again together, and I realized that what struck me more than anything was our love of shiny surfaces. I unabashedly will put glitter on things, and you yourself are no hiker in this department, are you?
Right.
My influences on this work are obviously Asian, and also the tonalists that were popular at the end of the 19th century, the 18th century. They were all melancholy and atmospheric, and picture that with my Asian influences, which are oddly vertical and oddly non-Western landscape feeling. And I have this abstraction, these layers, sometimes they're fences, sometimes they're nets, thin layers of paint where you always will pick up, sometimes more than a ghost of the original drawing. I'll use anything in hand. All these paints are different. So I've got this funny thing where I can talk endlessly about raking light and how important it is. And remember the Jesus eyes that you would pass by and the eyes would fall out, confessing that wasn't you were a child. Well, you can do that with my paintings if it's got the right light on it, because the ink will look shiny and the rest of this will look matte. Almost everything has glitter in it. Not because I wanted glitter to be in it, but once you start using it, you don't go back. It's everywhere. It's in the air we breathe. So here I've got the birds, and I've got the funny little people. I used to have to point those out to people, but it seems like people are more observant now than they used to be. I've even got these
Cats.
yes,
Cats and chickens.
ducks, whatever flows into my imagination. I don't know what more to say about these other than I want the viewer to think, and be pleased by them, not to be frightened by them. They are compelling pieces, I hope. I hope the longer you look at them in your home or wherever they finally end up, you'll be able to notice that, oh my God, are those dogs up there? Yes, those are dog faces. There's nothing that you can say that makes you not realize, and there's a person here too. So after you're there for a while, maybe, just maybe, you'll have more information about what they are. Good luck is all I can say. That's about really all if you have a question, I love questions. Oh my God, I had a clue up.
I'm curious why these pieces are not, you just made the decision not to have them framed or encased or they're hung just as is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Is that a big artistic choice?
It's a huge artistic choice. I have had pieces who people have put, I think the framer, hot velvet, what is that?
Ursula
Foam, not Ursula. Foam pour this piece on, and put them in a very shallow cradle. It's beautiful.
Oh.
I'm so opposed to slapping glass or plex or stuff on it. It freezes work, and already we're having trouble enough, right, seeing into some of these pieces. We don't need some glass or anything. Plus it makes the pieces so heavy. And that's another part of my credo. These are easily transportable, you put them in a mailing tube and they sprint off places. They're much easier to deal with in the studio. You can have a small studio. I don't have a small studio space. But on the back here is mousseline on the back of this. This is all rag paper, except this piece. This is cheap paper, because what I wanted to do, and I did do, you'll look at this piece, and it's got all these plastic, frankly, they're office supplies. I had some, and I thought, why waste good material, you know? So I slapped this on, and then because it took so much water, it got this humpy thing, which would not have happened with rag paper at all. So this is kind of a different animal. For the most part, I do paint on rag, and it is mixed media. That's what they call it, and that's what it is. There's no fences, there's no barriers to what I can use. That's all I have to say. I don't even know what that question was.
You answered framing.
Framing. The answer to that is no.
Right, thank you.
Is all the media water-based? Or
No, it isn't. I use a
some
lot
oil?
of, I use some lacquers. I use some enamels. Sparingly now, because for years I painted in oils, and it's not a healthy medium, and so now I'm a little bit more conscious that I like a water-based medium. I only use these other things in the summer when I can go outside and really have some fresh air. So I'm trying not to be too stupid.
Smart.
Yeah, better late than never, right? Yeah.
So do you start with preparatory sketches at all, or do you work directly on the paper? Do you do a pencil sketch first on the paper, or do you just start with a brush and just see what happens?
I'm an intuitive painter, but there are a lot of preparatory drawings. None of them at all look anything like this. But there's a lot of like fussing around and kind of getting into the niche, you know, with anything around that can help me. Usually I don't have a lot of material around me. So when I start, I just start. I start, frankly, laying on some heavy coats of paint with rollers. So I get some tooth already. And also I get some protection on this paper. And then I just start kind of doodling away and drawing. And I usually have 5 or 6 of these going at one time, so I don't have to worry about, like with oils, about this whole drawing time. You know, I can be right back on it. Sometimes it takes me 1.5 years to finish one of these because I'm not quite sure what I'm right back on, you know, until something starts emerging. You know, all painters know how that happens. So that's all I have to say about that.
Are there inks on?
Oh my
inks?
God, yes, Margot, so many inks. I'm still trying to learn about inks. I'm a real minimalist when it comes to materials. And so the ink thing it's all good.
They sink in more, right?
They do a funny thing with water-based paints too, where they kind of like separate a little bit, you know, they do that webbing kind of thing. I'm sure that's a scientific term. Anybody over there in the peanut gallery have anything to say?
So is it, when you're doing on paper, is it layering a lot that creates the color,
Yeah.
getting the color?
Yeah. And I work on the floor in the beginning, so I can not have a bunch of drips. The drip thing is something that all painters are very much involved in. And do you drip or do you not drip? And if you're working on scrolls, there are drips. And I work with thin paint, there are drips. Even with thick paint, there are drips. So, but you don't want those to get out of hand. They have to be controlled.
This is the result of layer after layer after layer.
Yeah, because then you can start kind of like, no, it's not like that's too many.
Thank you.
Okay, Linda, seems like you're up. Then we'll
Okay.
do more questions at the end. I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, maybe we'll square dance, I don't know.
Okay, Richard, watch you don't break something over there.
It's not yours. It's not yours.
things that were coming out. I think a lot of people are interested in the process and how you get started with things. Actually, my work for many years was figurative and very traditional. I've always been interested in working in a lot of different materials, and process has become more and more important in my work. I also, for many years, have been running a business of doing architectural models, mostly for museum exhibitions in the last number of years. And that has influenced my work a lot. Actually, when I was in school, it started when I went to Rhode Island School of Design, so all of the first-year students kind of worked together, and then they split us up in the second year where all the 3D people were in classes together, so that there was industrial design and architecture and sculpture and ceramics. We were all kind of grouped together and working